Alright, Pre-Calc Honors Trimester Project by George McFarland. I like this background. Introduction. So, my name is George McFarland. I started this on the 24th of January, so that's why the date is there. It is no longer the 24th, so that is now irrelevant. And I have math class F period, which lasts from 12:15 to 12:59 p.m. That there is an image of Congress, as you can tell by the note underneath it. I decided to put all my text into Photoshop and make it all stylized like you see in those cringe YouTube thumbnails. Moving on. Background. So the issue I'm discussing is the popularity of Congress over the last 20 years. Technically 22 years since this goes back to 2000, but 20 just sounded nicer. So why would anyone want to study this? I'd say it's to figure out what the American people think of Congress and those inside of it, like how their representatives are using their time in office to make their state and or country a better place to live. Congress hasn't ever been super popular among the American people, and studying this information correlated with what major events happened within Congress in any given year could help those in Congress understand what they could be doing differently to help their individual popularity ratings and the popularity of Congress as a whole. I conversed with my mother to help with this project, as even though she is biased in her beliefs, her opinions on Congress, regardless of who is in power, are important to figure out how the working population views Congress. She isn't happy with Congress as a whole right now and wishes they would do more to help the current economic situation and make living in America a better experience. So here we have data. There's a graph on the next slide, but here's the raw data from each year, which is represented on the x-axis. I used the highest possible percentage from every year, so it's not entirely accurate to how everyone felt about Congress all year long, every year since 2000, but it gives a good idea of what people think if the highest number from a year is in the teens. The x-axis does represent the years, as I said, but the years here are being represented by the numbers after 20, so 0 is 2000 and 22 is 2022, if that makes sense. Here on the right is all the raw data if you'd like to pause and take a look, but there will be a graph on the next slide to give you a better idea. Also, I got this information from Gallup News. They have a great amount of information regarding Congress's popularity every month since 1974, but once again, I'm only covering 2000 to 2022. I put the link in a nice MLA format for you here. It's not like you can click on it, but it's the thought that counts. Graph and other stuff. So here's that graph I was talking about. It represents Congress's popularity since 2000, and on the right we have the information I mentioned before and the regression equation that can be used to make predictions of future values. And what do you know? That's exactly what I was required to do. So here are my predictions for the next 5 years, which includes this year because there hasn't been a full year of data yet, and here's a graph that includes those points along with the previous ones made in the past slides. Now I'm sure you've noticed some issues. I have as well. Issues. So like I said here, this graph and equation don't take into account any spikes in popularity that may happen in any given year, as we see in the graph. And it only decreases, which doesn't seem the most likely, at least I hope it isn't. Alright, so how could these help? It can help members of Congress understand, or at least start to think about, what they can do differently to raise their popularity ratings, and it can also encourage members of Congress to interact with their constituents more often to see what they would want to have done differently or continue to be done throughout their term in Congress. It could also help those who do not pay attention to politics to understand what their fellow Americans think of the government and its work. Also, it can help Americans fully understand how their disappointment with the government and its actions year over year are not ones that only they hold, but one that a large number of Americans hold.